Hi, I'm Becky Walsh. I want to talk to you a little bit about archetypes. Now, archetypes were something that kind of came up very strongly in young psychology, Carl Jung's psychology, rather than not young psychology. The psychology wasn't young itself. So what an archetype is the characters that we play in life. So if you were a playwright or a film creator, you would be looking at the archetypes of particular characters. And archetypes quite often are the roles that we play in life. So you may be a parent, you may be a teacher, you may be a coach. But then there's other ones, like you may be a witness, and I don't mean just a witness to a crime, but you may be the person who, people talk to about things, they open up, especially about things that they feel shameful about. And that might be because you come across as a witness archetype. You could be a magician, a court jester, which is a little bit like Russell Brand has been. So the court jester used to be the person that said lots and lots of funny things and then was allowed into the court, who would challenge the king using comedy. And now he's stopped challenging kings and is using the archetype of the wise one, of the spiritual teacher. And maybe that's something that he has grown into with age. Sorry, Russell. But when we think about archetypes in lots of ways, we are looking at different power dynamics. In fact, they're depicted quite heavily in the major arcana on the tarot deck. So when we look at what an archetype is a character in which we play in our lives. So think about some of the characters that you play in your life. Who are you to other people? Why this is important is because when you're facing something that is a bit of a challenge, it's almost like creating a character to become stabilisers on the bike as you move into a new element of who you are as a person. So in my own life, I am definitely a witness archetype. Anyone with an issue will end up talking to me. I will always end up sitting next to somebody on the bus who has a lot to say. In fact, I'm quite enjoying social distancing. I'm listening to far less problems than I was before. Only my clients, and they're paying, that's great. Not that I'm harsh and don't like listening to people. Oh, that makes me sound like a terrible human being. But what I mean by this is, if you imagine yourself as a warrior archetype, get your goddess Kali out. If you're seeing yourself as a warrior archetype, then you might be able to feel a certain level of strength that you couldn't before. And that might mean that you are putting on the warrior clothes. This might be my warrior jacket. Oh yeah. That you are stepping into. And the more you can become really clear on this character, then the better it can be. Now, when we are searching for limiting beliefs, things that make us feel bad about ourselves, quite often we will find that we have an archetype of a child, and we call it our inner child. So you may have heard a lot about inner child work, and this is what we're talking about. So you can have the archetype of the abandoned orphan, the archetype of the frightened child. And so sometimes when we're having to face something in life that is tough to deal with, that child comes out, I'm not doing it, I know, well, you have to. And the way over that might be that you suddenly find yourself talking to yourself as a parent. I know you're scared, but we're going to have to do this. There's no other way around it. You're just going to have to buckle up. I often imagine that my archetypes are kind of like on a school bus, and one of them is doing a Munia at the back window. Still don't know which one it is. Now, they're all archetypes on this bus. So I've got my saboteur, who is holding the map, trying to give me wrong directions, but I've got the sat-nav and I ain't fallen for it. And then I've got the control freak, who let him behind that wheel and he will drive all night, drive all day, weeks and weeks until his eyes bleed. Then there's my inner critic. Oh, I love spending an evening. I usually spend a hangover with my inner critic. So then you have the inner critic, you have all of these different people, and I imagine them to all be on my bus in life. Just don't let them drive. Don't let any of them drive. Your inner awareness is the part of you that needs to drive. Drive that journey of your life. However, sometimes some things just feel a little scary and a little tough to deal with. So if you can find an archetype, even your own internal parent, even an inner warrior, you could be the alchemist, the magician, whoever you feel, get really clear on that person. Like, what do they look like? What do they eat? What magazines do they read? Where do they hang out? But especially on their clothing, get really clear on what they look like as a person. This becomes stabilisers on the bike, because whenever you have to face something that's difficult, you can just imagine, like an actor, stepping into that character, jazz hands, and becoming that person in the world. Which means that over a period of time of having to put the stabilisers on the bike, I do this when I'm going for a job interview. Oh yeah, so archetypally, I will be whoever you want me to be. The chameleon of all, you know, I'm quite a chameleon in a party. I'll sort of shapeshift for whoever I'm talking to. Yeah. That's why I don't have my own parties, because lots of people know me in lots of different ways. Confession. So what I would say to you is, when you step into that character and you step into that clothing, if you've got to make a difficult phone call, if you've got to be strong out there in the world, it just works like stabilisers on the bike until you have proved to yourself that you are that brilliant because you did it, and you did it in the archetype, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you did it. You did it. You can do this. You can do this. So the archetype will really help you get grounded to be able to make brave steps, no matter what your emotional guidance system is telling you. Good stuff. Go out there and be brave and brilliant in the world.